I'm Sean Jones, and today we're watching Robots, Detectives, and Spies. I got my friend here, Simon,
Hello.
who's joined me. That's your camera over there, too. This is kind of an informal discussion on Tron and Tron Legacy. We might talk a little bit about Tron 2.0 and Tron Uprising, which is one of the games and the TV show. But unfortunately, I've seen or played Tron 2.0 and seen Tron Uprising. Yeah. So this, like I said, is a little bit more informal. We don't have like a 200-page outline like I did. Not quite 200 pages for the Robin Hood one, but yeah. So you never seen Tron before?
No, I have not. This is the first time I have watched the Tron films.
Gotcha. Yeah. So we watched both of them back to back last weekend. How about we start with Tron, the original '82 film? Um, yeah, to give a little bit of overview with the first Tron, to give a short, mostly spoiler-free summary, which there'll probably be spoilers in this off and on. The original Tron is a film about a programmer trying to find evidence that his former boss was stealing his work, but what's preventing him is the master control program. So he teams up with a bunch of former coworkers, and in the process of trying to break into the system, gets digitized by a laser and ends up in the world of Tron. And the story is about whether or not they can stop the master control program and its designs for the world or something like that. Yeah, what did you think of Tron?
I really thought it was an interesting film. I liked the kind of the premise of the film is quite interesting. The idea that you're going from the real world into this digitized world is I don't know if it's quite unique would be the word, but it makes really interesting for a film.
Yeah, it's, yeah, it's probably I always wonder about how would Phil have seen in '82 when
Hmm.
people are talking about like RAM or something like that.
Right, because at that time people were I feel like, less familiar with technology than we probably are now, since they didn't have smartphones and stuff. So people watching it at that time, it was probably quite unique and new to them.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of different things with that one. I think a fun fact I can think off the top of my head is wasn't able to qualify for a visual effects award at the time because it was considered computers were considered cheating or something weird like that.
Okay.
Or in Wikipedia, so therefore it must be true. Um, yeah, that was a big push at the time. There had been computer generated effects and other stuff like Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan, some wireframe stuff in the original Star Wars, but it was some of the, I think, the most extensive use of 3D at that time, which was pretty novel, and all that stuff. So, what do you think about how, like the characters and all that stuff? Like you got Flynn played by Jeff Bridges. You have well and slash Clue, and then you have Tron played by Bruce Boxemeyer, and then I can't remember the female character's name. And then there's Master Control Program and kind of his similar whatever. And then the founder who plays that weird computer that's like a Sphinx or whatever. But yeah, have you are you familiar with Jeff Bridges at all or
Yes,
yeah?
I've seen him in a couple other films. He's probably best known for Iron Man,
I mean, yeah, I could
potentially,
possibly yeah
in the Iron Man films. So I'd only seen him in Iron Man, but I really
yeah
like how they portrayed his character. I think he did a good job
yeah
of. I feel like he was more serious in the film, and I think he brought a sense of, yeah, just seriousness to the film, and a sense of what's the word, credibility, I think, to the film.
I mean, he's definitely probably not the biggest of the three actors. I think Bruce Boxemeyer was in Scarecrow and Mrs. Keen around that time. I don't. and then later on Babylon 5. I don't know what he's known for prior to Tron. And she's probably most famous for Tron, I'd imagine. And
Mm-hmm.
then I think the actress name is Cindy Morgan, who played the female. She's been in other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think whatever. But yeah, I think Jeff Bridges is probably the biggest actor they would get for that. Outside maybe like the British guy
Mm-hmm.
playing a villain or something like that. But yeah, he feels like a little bit of and Jeff Bridges who plays Flynn in the first film. He's kind of feels almost like a little bit like a Han Solo kind of character.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe maybe a little different. Maybe like Dennis Quaid in Inner Space, which is maybe too obscure for it's not an obscure film, but maybe
Mm-hmm.
a reference you might not know. But
Mm-hmm.
he's he's a little bit sardonic, but not particularly like But yeah, it's looking at my notes. I think there's a lot of good actors in this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's funny. You also look at my notes too. But I feel like it's a little bit, the acting's a little bit odd. Like I think Jeff Bridges is really good,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not sure about some of the other. It could be the editing. There's that scene in the film where they go after Bruce Boxmeyer's character gets locked out of whatever level access. They go to his arcade, and they're talking to him. And it's a scene where they're about to see the same amount of distance as I am from you, but they're like editing, and it's like a one kind of shot, and it goes right to like a close up of Bruce Boxmeyer, and it goes back to Jeff Bridges, and right back up. And I don't know if it's the pace of it or something, but it's something about Phil off. It's probably not the most. None of the acting I would call like bad per
Mm-hmm.
se, but it feels a little bit stilted or something. If it's the direction or the pace, I don't know if that's something you noticed or
Yeah, I think I think I'd probably describe the acting as maybe different than maybe what I'm used to,
yeah.
and I'm wondering if the dialogue
Mm-hmm.
has anything to do with it.
Just in terms of like the words on the page kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because a lot of her talking about like you gotta my whatever program blank blank this or that level 70 whatever access this or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then you could get a whatever reverse the pull. So that kind of real
Right.
tech
Technical lingo.
jargon and all that stuff. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think most of it seems to be accurate. I have no experiences with 80s mainframes,
Mm-hmm.
but there's some references to networking, which I don't even know what, back in the day. And then one character's just named Ram for some reason, and
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a whatever thing. What'd you think of, just kind of jumping around here a bit, what did you think of the visuals of the first one?
The visuals were they were pretty good compared to some of the older films I've seen. Um, I think there probably could be more technical things said about it,
Yeah.
but like the colors, the animation, special effects seem pretty good.
I guess maybe this is a difference in like different films, but you've ever seen Star Wars?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen 2001?
I don't know if I've seen that one.
Okay, have you seen Alien?
Yeah, I have seen
The
Alien.
first one would have been out by this time, so
Okay.
those don't use a lot of computer. They might use a computer to control like a camera,
Mm-hmm.
or to have like a little wireframe thing. But those are mostly done with like models and blue screen and all. It's a very minimal mix of like practical.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what else is? You probably haven't seen the last Starfighter, have you?
No.
Okay, that'd be an interesting point of comparison. That's another film from this time period that used a lot of 3D.
Because I
Yeah,
do remember the 3D.
yeah.
I feel like that was used quite a bit during the film. I don't
Yeah.
know if that was a newer technique at the time.
New-ish. Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan had a fully CG thing. It's either the same year of this film or before. Like I said, in Star Wars when they show the trench run, there's a lot of 3D in that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so new. I think every single company that they were going for with like imaging some of them were like worked for like defense contractors. I think some of them were like medical imaging stuff.
Hmm.
So they had a lot of. It was really novel at the time that to kind of do all that stuff on a computer.
Hmm.
But there definitely have been 3D stuff before. But the kind of like the basic like lighting and all that stuff,
Hmm.
or textured would probably be the way of saying it. Yeah. Anyways, texture shaded. It's very primitive, even for stuff you could see in a university at the time. But the scale of it, whatever.
Hmm. And kind of maybe somewhat related. What do we want to talk about, like the costume or
Yeah,
clothing
yeah,
choices of the characters? I thought they all fit the time. I thought they all fit the context of the movie, at least.
yeah. Um, they're very like they get there and they're all like glowing and their skin's gray and
Hmm.
all that stuff and
Because I think there was the one scene they had. Yeah, they had glowing
mhm.
costumes or something like that.
Yeah. I love there's like a random scene where they got like they show shots of the city and it's just people wearing all sorts of goofy costumes and what looks like a bird or a bush is just hanging out.
Hmm.
You didn't see any of that in the sequel, like Big Bird's a program too.
Hmm.
Yeah. What do you think of like I got on the story here? It's a little bit like Wizard of Oz or like Alice Through the Looking Glass or something like the kind of like the end of Wizard of Oz. She kind of realizes a lot of the characters are like similar to people she met in the real world and stuff.
Right, like the Tin Man and the Lion.
Yeah,
They were all
and you were there too. Yeah,
those three characters in real life.
yeah.
Hmm.
There's an element of that where Tron is based off of Brooks Balksamire's main character. The female character, is, I think, played by Cindy Morgan, is inspired by that. They're different, but they also seem to absorb some of the personality traits
Right.
of their whatever. It seems like Clue, who only shows up for a few scenes, is also like inspired by his character, but it's hard to tell because he's not in the film a lot.
Hmm.
And they got like he's got the when he's in the tank and the little bits talking to him. I actually really like that because it was kind of binary, a
Hmm.
lot of that. Yeah, but it seems like most of the programs have the appearance and personality traits of the creator,
Right.
which I'm not from a technical perspective. I'm guessing. I don't know. The idea is if you program something, you like I guess any kind of artwork or thing you design has bits of personality. But that's interesting. So I think most of them. I'm not sure who is it. Dylan, yeah, Dillinger's the villain. I'm not sure who his direct one-to-one would be in the whatever world.
Hmm.
Even the old guy that's like working with on the laser thing. This guy, whatever. Yeah. So a lot of that's there. I mean, the story, at least in my opinion, and I'm kind of saying that because it's hard to it's hard to judge something that's like right in the middle.
Hmm.
I don't think the story is exceptional, but I think for the kind of film it is, having a story about a guy trying to break into a computer system and find something
Hmm.
where he has direct parallels to what's happening in the virtual world that's happening in the real world. It's I think the comparison to Wizard of Oz is almost kind of like you got like dreams and stuff where you're like
Hmm.
you can interpret Dorothy go to Wizard of Oz is like having a dream and then kind of meeting different archetypes are similar to the ones. I don't know if you did any of that kind of um, whatever with that or
Hmm.
yeah. Have you seen Inception?
I don't think I've seen that film.
Okay, interesting.
Did you think with the Tron, the first one, did you think the story was kind of like linear? I kind of felt like it was. They were kind of going
Well,
toward right the master.
oh, okay, yeah, because
Did you?
linear can also mean like non-linear, as in like non-chronological or something.
Yeah. What did you kind of think? Did you think it was
It's
kind of chronological or jumped around or?
it's very go to place get a thing kind of thing. Yeah, very
Yeah.
much. At least in the first one is so. Flynn's goal is that he wants to prove that his boss stole his former or coworker or boss stole
Mhm.
his um, project, and so his goal is
Right.
to get into the system. He's doing that even before Boxemeyer's there. Tron, Bruce Boxemeyer's character, I can't remember the name of his real life one, Alan something. He's trying to get Tron up and running as a way to sort of see discrepancies in the system or something.
Right.
And then Cindy Morgan's character is kind of there. She's not completely there. She also helps facilitate letting them use her credentials. I think they get into the system.
Mhm.
So, and then I think once you get into the computer, it switches over to Tron and the other program interacting with, I guess originally RAM, I think,
Mhm.
and then the female scientist program, and then they have a more direct conflict with the hypervisor. It's not technically hypervisor, but the security program, master
Mhm.
control program. But yeah,
So at the end of the film, do you think there was like a resolution or uh, like that they met their goal?
I mean, I think, which if you say like, I mean, I guess my question would be like, do you think they went on like character arcs or like they changed as people or anything like that or
Yeah, yeah, kind of related to that. Yeah.
yeah? I just for some reason want to see if there was checking to see if Blackburn was behind both of us because then I don't get checked that until this exact moment. It's just the stuff you don't think about until you're already rolling. Yeah.
That is a good point. Did the characters develop throughout the film? I'm not sure.
I would say the villain definitely goes on an arc in the sense that he not arc he goes on a journey. It's arc is like you have to be like okay the character starts here and
Hmm.
they end up here and then you kind of look at their progress.
Yeah.
He doesn't really change, but he does have clear goals
Hmm.
that he's trying to prevent. He's being blackmailed by the master control program,
Hmm.
and he's also trying to prevent access so that Flynn can't find this the files that he apparently just has somewhere. He hasn't changed them in a way that can
Uh
kind
huh.
of cover his tracks
Hmm.
of all these video games that Flynn made that he took credit for. He's such a funny idea to me that this kind of really like like a corporate guy has made all these claims of making all these video games. People are like, yeah, you could
Hmm.
have made some video games,
Hmm.
but well, light cycle or whatever.
Hmm.
But yeah, the scientist lady, not really. I think you could argue that Tron changed his opinion on. Well, no, he's pro user at the beginning of the story, as in the kind of view the computer users as like mythic figures for some reason.
Hmm.
It's like almost like a weird religious persecution allegory for some reason. And then he's pro user. I keep
Hmm.
on saying pro user friendly. He's pro user
Uh huh.
at the beginning, and then he kind of learns that Tron's a user.
Right.
I, it could be like a Neo ish thing. I don't know if you've seen The Matrix.
Hmm.
Okay, where Neo learns to use his power
Right.
as whatever or powers or use the system against it. He does seem to kind of utilize better whatever.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's what I got in my notes is the story's a bit fine in air quotes. Like fine. Like
Hmm.
if you need a framing device that gets you into like having the light cycles and stuff, that's part of the real meat and potatoes of it. What do you think of like the games? Because there's a lot of games, and I mean like the actual like gladiatorial stuff they've new like Deadly Lacrosse. You know what I'm saying? What do you think about that?
um, I think the games that I can recall were good.
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to remember a specific one
So they
in the
had
first film.
yeah.
Um,
So they had Deadly Lacrosse. And then there was the game where you'd throw the disc at the other guy. If you hit him, you'd derez or delete. And then there was Light Cycle, which was the most famous one for the film.
Hmm.
Do you have I don't know? Did you have a favorite of those? At least the three I mentioned, or
I think the one where they threw the disc was quite interesting. It added
yeah.
some kind of intensity and I think suspense to the film.
And I think of the games, I think that one's the one that's the most direct parallels to later. You know, in terms of gladiatorial element, where they utilize
Right.
not the skills I learned, but they utilize the same skills for that what they would in the real world.
Right.
Yeah, it's it's an interesting one. The lacrosse one I think is funny because someone was like, "We got to come up with a game." It's like, all right, they're standing on circles and they have like lacrosse and they kind of throw it over, and as they're going, if it hits that circle, you die. So I guess
Hmm.
the problem is the difficulty doesn't escalate. So if you get a guy who's like aiming for the other guy and hitting the circles, he's moving out to the edges.
Hmm.
And if someone else is whatever, it's just kind of random,
Right.
which is probably the point of it.
Hmm.
And then he like, I think Flynn, I think they kind of play it like he doesn't realize the gravity of it, and he kind of like yells at the guy when he's about to press the button.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. That sounds right.
but it is, and there's some plot related reason why they don't just kill him. They want to send him for the games and stuff.
Hmm.
What do you think of Light Cycle? Because I feel like that's the most famous thing that come from the film.
Um,
The
can
one.
you remind me of Life
Okay.
Cycle again?
Yeah, this is a very carefully planned show. We've been working on this for hours. Um, the Light Cycle is the one where they're in the cars and it leaves a trail, and then as they're driving before
Yeah,
another car crash.
whenever the trail,
Yeah,
you're right. It's basically like if you're mowing the grass or something, you leave a trail.
yeah,
That was probably my favorite part of the film. Actually, I thought it was made it interesting.
yeah.
It was good action,
Hmm.
good suspense, and then it also added some conflict or some
Yeah,
tension because you didn't know who was going to crash into each other or who
yeah.
was going to survive the.
The encounter.
Right. So that was probably my favorite part of the film.
I think the other thing that I think I really appreciated the newer film did was the colors of the cars match the people in the cars. So I sometimes where I'm like, oh no, oh he didn't die. It just I got I mixed up the cars or something like that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Do you think the light cycle with those cars? Do you think that fit the theme of the film? I was just kind of
well
wondering about that.
they run on a grid. So there's a shot earlier in the film where they're in the cubicles, and then you see that they just go off into I think it's a matte painting.
Hmm.
The grid, it's something about just the way that everything's sort of symmetrical and
Hmm.
forcibly symmetrical and ordered, um, which seems to be the thing, the master control program. There's some kind of a parallel there between that and kind of 80s offices where there's a TV show called uh, Lois and the Adventures of Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, or something like that.
Hmm.
And there's an episode where Lois wants to work at a large television station. So in her newsroom, there's no like cubicles. It's just desks everywhere. You can walk over to another desk. But then she goes to the newsroom. It's all segmented. And they got the whatever like that. So it could be like some kind of a thing like that, where the kind of the changing culture and all that stuff with the ways that things are going.
Hmm. But yeah, I think the light cycle. I think it added action and some suspense to the film.
Yeah,
Because right when you saw the cars come out, you didn't exactly know who
yeah,
was gonna win or
yeah.
that kind of a thing.
What do you think of? So I feel like it's pretty that middle section from them leaving the maze, the light cycle thing, to them kind of running around until they meet get into the solar sail thing. Uh,
Right.
I feel it's a lot of it is them in the light cycles for a bit, kind of running around and getting chased by the Master Control's security programs and stuff.
Right.
Like, do you feel like it kind of held the same pacing, or did like sometimes in a film like this, the the middle act will kind of sag a bit and kind of not
Hmm.
be as well paced.
I think that part with the light cycle helped propel the film forward
Yeah,
because it was toward the middle or end, um,
somewhat. Yeah.
somewhat, and so I feel like if it was excluded, the film wouldn't have had the same effect, or it wouldn't have propelled it forward as much, potentially.
Yeah, I guess I was so you get the light like sequence and then they break for the wall basically. Well, they go for a hole in the wall and they all get out and they're off the grid
Hmm.
basically, and they're kind of running free. That sequence where they're kind of running around until Ram dies,
Hmm.
and he takes control of the recognizer or whatever.
Yeah, where
I
they right.
I feel like that sequence, which is kind of an extended chase scene, did the pacing
Hmm.
work for you? I guess that's what I'm asking. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it kept the film propelling forward.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's tough because one of my things in this note is characters are a bit undercooked but likable. Like I don't think there's like they're all nice enough people and somewhat interesting,
Hmm.
but there's not a lot of stuff we can fall back on. So for that middle section where you run around where like character development per se,
Right.
or even like it's not like a there's a philosophical discussion in the film, but it's more I don't know, just like I don't know. It's like both films are like arguing for like not Linux because Linux didn't exist in that I think Linux is early '90s,
Hmm.
but sort of like more open systems. If information wants to be free or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean it's not like there's a scene where where Ram pulls out a pitch and goes, "See, that's my wife and family." And all that stuff right before he dies in
Right.
2 weeks from retirement.
There's not as much of a connection to maybe other their past,
Yeah,
maybe, but there's more of a connection maybe with each other, with the other characters in the film.
yeah. You do learn a little bit about Flynn's background. You do learn that a little bit, like there's like supposedly have been like a relationship with him and Cindy Morgan's character, and he has a history with all the other characters. The Tron characters are weird because they might be as developed as they could be as characters technically.
Hmm.
It's really hard to say how similar they are to like people in all that sense in terms of like they're not literally people.
Right.
Um, I just I that's a little bit of the struggle with that. Yeah, how are we doing on time here? I cannot tell. Also, we're gone for about 20 minutes.
Do we
Yeah.
want to move to the second Tron 2.0?
Let's just. I have a note on music. Did you have any opinion about the music at all for the first one?
I felt, yeah, the music was. I like the electronic music.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that it fit the theme and the context of the film.
Did any of it seem a little bit weird or out of place at all?
I think sometimes maybe they just played music maybe too much. I felt like
Yeah.
sometimes it got a little repetitive because they
Yeah.
played the same electronic music through most of the film.
Yeah. Especially in the first one. There's a few swings for the fences. The composer did Switched on Bach, which was the first big electronic album after the Moog was released. Had a lot of ties to Bob Moog, and then did some music for Stanley Kubrick in the '70s, and I think did like the music for The Shining or something,
Hmm.
or some of the music for The Shining, because I think there's classical music in all of Stanley Kubrick's films.
Hmm.
So very famous, like pop classical composer. So you get a lot of weird time signatures or just out there choices, but I do feel like it fits
Hmm.
what you're trying to do. Um, how about we just do a quick section here where maybe some closing thoughts, and then like takeaways or whatever. Like what you're. It's like if you had to sort of summarize your thoughts of what you feel about Tron 1982. Like how would you summarize it?
I would probably say the film was engaging,
Hmm.
the plot was fine,
Yeah.
the action was pretty good,
Yeah.
and the characters were also fairly good.
Yeah.
And then the technical elements were pretty good. So overall, like I feel like the film, if we were like rating on a scale like 1 to 10,
Yeah.
would maybe like a 6.
Okay.
So it was because it was pretty good, but then there were also some gaps.
Yeah. Would you recommend it to a friend?
Yeah, I think I
Okay.
probably would. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say yeah. I think if I had to summarize it, I'd say I've thought of it in the past a little bit of an acquired taste, a little bit in terms of just some of the visuals. Some of the visuals are just like a guy on a black and white set with the screen being tinted a weird color. I would actually really recommend if you're into the history of visual effects to sort of look into that. Very unique how they made the film. There's probably technically more visual effects in the old film than there's a new one.
Hmm.
Who's to really say on that? But there's a reason why their skin's gray. A lot of it was filmed in black and white and like hand matted. It's a very strange um, way they did it, which in the '80s was super crazy technical.
Hmm.
But I'm not sure how accurate some of my information is on that. But yeah, my take was I would recommend it, but with the caveats is like I think the light cycle stuff is really interesting. It's a very I don't know explain it. Not goofy is not the right word, and campy is not the right word either. But it's very much it is what it is. Like somebody before home computers were in every home, like more in the '90s,
Hmm.
decided to make before the Commodore 64 even hit the market, around the time the Commodore 64 hit the market, make a film about the inside of computers that uses computer terminology and jargon,
Hmm.
and also has just a bunch of random like that's CGI, that's a matte painting, that's a black and white set, that's hand rotoscoping. Oh, it's a it mostly works for what it is, and the story's decent.
Hmm.
It's not like a thriller or very heavily plotted. It's not really particularly character driven either.
Hmm.
But yeah, I definitely I would recommend with caveats. Like it's early days of CGI, so you get what you get. Maybe I'll just do a quick section for Tron 2.0 and Tron Uprising.
Yeah.
Not a lot to say about Tron 2.0. It's kind of a loose. It's not loose. Sorry, I would say this in the loosest term. It is like Tron 2, like Tron 2.0. System Shock, which you've probably never played. It's a game where you're locked. Metroidvania might be another term for it, but System Shock, you're like locked in an area, so you have to get abilities, open up a door to get for that area, and then sometimes you have to backtrack to grab another thing. So your abilities and master kind of open up doors for you to kind of move for the levels or whatever.
Hmm.
So System Shock, Bioshock, Metroid, all that stuff kind of Metroid Prime and Super Metroid or whatever, more or less work like that.
Hmm.
The gameplay is interesting, but yeah, it plays the same music the whole time. The visuals are fine. The gameplay is interesting, like good starting point, fellas. Let's keep going. It's got a lot of weird FPS things. So like the point where I pulled out the Tron shotgun and started shooting people, which is kind of funny. Just doesn't feel like the whole idea of like say a guy walking around, you
Hmm.
know. And the ways the guns load and stuff is interesting. That it does use like disc combat earlier in the game, but it gets a little weird.
Hmm.
But I do like the fact that it as a sequel, it's more visually in line with the first film. But because it's a game, it's all 3D. It's a little bit more seamless. It came out like Xbox, early Xbox, like somewhere between 2001 and 2003. So
Hmm.
it's 2004. It's very came out like 21 years ago. So
Hmm.
graphics are decent for the time. If you're like a Tron diehard, which I might be one of a few people that are, I wouldn't even call myself a real diehard. but it's whatever it is. And then going to Tron Uprising, I think it has the strongest story. It was a show made by Disney that went on their kind of like Disney XD, which was the Disney channels, like the same channel that like Clone Wars was on when it was on Disney and stuff. A little bit more serious.
Mm-hmm.
Got canceled. It's similar to Batman Beyond, where Batman Beyond's a show about an older Bruce Wayne training a younger Batman. This show's about an older, I guess, Bruce Boxamar, but playing Tron, training a younger Tron. So he's kind of almost like a guy taking on the mantle of Tron and fighting against what would be Clue from the second film, but kind of Clue's rise to power and kind of almost like the Empire and Star Wars kind of taken over. You got some similarities. Takes place in it's very interesting. They show the main character's a mechanic, which is kind of interesting. So you get to see how they repair light cycles and make vehicles, and also it's interesting. It has visually and sonically, it's much more visually and sonically similar to the 2010 film than is the original series. But there's some similarities, and it kind of explains what happened in Tron in between the first film and the second film and all that stuff.
So it fills in the gaps.
Some of them, yeah, it got canceled. That's the biggest issue with it. Is that the way it ends makes the link there leaves some questions, and then you kind of have to wonder how do we get from this? Just not spoilers. It's also kind of I want to avoid spoilers and all that stuff, but it's also kind of weirdly violent. So probably kids more like I don't know, like 10 or older or whatever. Just like a weird psychopathic character, and even though it's de-resin and not actual whatever, it's still kind of whatever.
Right.
So that brings us to Tron Legacy. I know there are other games in media, but I've only played Tron 2.0. Well, there was a light cycle game, but that's not like a real game. What did you think of Tron Legacy? So that brings us to there. Actually, maybe we should do a thing real quick. Tron Legacy. It's the son of Flynn, Sam Flynn, I believe. Alan got a page, and he realizes his dad might still be alive, so he goes back to the arcade, ends up back in the computer on the grid, and realizes that there's a computer program trying to build an army to get outside the computer, and he's got to hurry to stop him, or something like that. That's the premise. What did you think of Tron Legacy?
I thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I think I liked the older film a little better, though.
Well, I guess why would be my question. Yeah.
I felt like the older film was a little more original. Maybe the ideas were a little more original. Obviously, it was Tron Legacy's the next one.
Yeah.
But I felt like maybe Tron Legacy was a little more not repetitive.
Yeah.
But less creative.
It's interesting you say that. I remember I was probably visiting relatives in 2010 when the film came out. I remember my uncle saying, "Man, they don't have new ideas anymore." I'm not sure which. Don't remember the line. Obviously, I was pretty young when this film came out, but it's funny.
So your notes say that story has weird world implications.
Well,
do you want to expand on that?
So the way that you get into the grid is that you get scanned, basically. You get ripped apart like the transporter or any kind of thing in Star Trek. You get ripped apart cell by cell and put inside a computer. And its original story was the idea is that you could basically teleport things from point to point. Store it on a computer digitally and put it back. Now, there are, I believe, trillions of cells in a person. So there's no computer in the 80s without large amounts of. I have like a multi-terabyte thing at the house. The idea of each cell, like you take like an amoeba, you could probably hold up a ton of information just on a single cell creature.
Hmm.
Then you build up that layer of complexity up to like a trillion. You're talking no, petaflops. That's a huge amount of information. But you're
Hmm.
talking like a single organism could probably overwhelm the internet, basically, in terms of
Right.
complexity.
Hmm.
The problem is if you flip that around and you take something out of the computer, you have the opposite issue. So
Hmm.
Tron, Economos 64 is called Economos 64. This computer that came out the same year as Tron because it's a 64K or 64,000 byte byte or bit or byte. It's a little bit different. There's 8 bits in a byte. It's a 64,000 bit computer. There
Hmm.
was the Commodore 128 was had slightly more RAM. So back in the 80s, a program was probably like kilobytes, which is like a text document now.
Hmm.
And so the idea that Tron, you could take Tron, there's a few kilobytes, and then take all his data, throw him through a laser, and he comes out a person on the other side, or some kind of living organism, or even a robot,
Hmm.
is kind of farcical. Because where's the matter coming from? Where's all the data? How you fill in the gaps? So the idea that Clue's going to bring in thousands of programs in from the computer out into the real world, it's you're going from somewhat grounded, maybe a little bit metaphorical view of the inside of a computer to being like, um, I guess ideas maybe in like a mobile device or something. There's like Horde and Here's a Who. There's like really little atom size, not atom size, like single cell
Hmm.
bacteria sized people and just getting, you know,
Right.
enlarged and, and really computers are a form of slavery at that point if you think about it. But anyways, I don't know. It gets the metaphor starts to break down when you bring it to the real world. Then you
Hmm.
get like it becomes like a magic system, and then at that point, if I'll get into my thoughts about the trailers for the new film, but that's just weird.
Do you think they're maybe basing this on some other film or idea? What you were just describing, this transferring.
Yeah, you can in other media when AIs come into the real world, they usually have some kind of like a proxy. So like you think like Avatar, where they kind of can control a body.
Hmm.
So sometimes computers will take over people. It's kind of like old Victorian stories where ghosts would take over like a living person or something.
Hmm.
You could do that. You could even have them puppeting people in the real world. You could have them maybe make like a 3D printer so they could like make a person or they can make a
Hmm.
hologram. There's a lot of parallels in like other science fiction that have kind of there's a I think one of the doctors on Star Trek from Voyager or something. It's just a hologram basically,
Okay.
but he's limited in I don't know how that affects him when he goes on like a planet or something.
Right.
So then that you don't have to wonder where all the mass and matter comes from. You can just sort of go like, oh, he's just a hard light hologram or something.
Hmm.
There's that, and then obviously within a lot of fantasy stories, the witch, coming through the real world, and like the magician's nephew in Narnia,
Right.
it's just magic, So
Uh-huh.
you don't have to really explain how that works. Although they explain a lot more how the magic works in the magician's nephew than they do how the laser works in Tron. Like they give you some really basic scientific explanation, but doesn't explain how they have enough storage. Once you
Hmm.
try to build something, once you try to explain how it works in the real world, it breaks down where it's
Hmm.
relatively contained. Like
Right.
they have Star Trek hard drives. That's how they keep the people on. But like I don't even know if I would believe the kind of technology that could bring a light cycle into the real world in
Hmm.
Star Trek. Like it would have to be a hologram,
Right.
or they would have to build something that's possibly built by the replicator or something.
Hmm.
Maybe that's a thing in Star Trek. I've only seen like a few, like First Contact, Wrath of Khan, and maybe an episode two of TNG or
Hmm.
something.
So that is that kind of what you mean by the less interactions between the two worlds?
No, okay, yeah, we're both reading my notes. The less interactions between the two worlds is the end of Wizard of Oz, where you have the story in so the plot about the operating system being locked down has almost nothing to do with what's going on in the whatever. So the idea about him throwing the files and basically open sourcing Windows or whatever the operating system equivalent is.
Mm-hmm.
Clue has no investment in that
Mm-hmm.
as a program, but the master control program in the original story was driving the plot basically.
Right.
A bit Dillinger, a little bit in terms of his hubris in creating the program.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the story, that whole thing about him, like information wants to be free. Linux, man, it's so cool.
Right.
I like Linux. I use it at home, but like
Mm-hmm.
the thing between open hardware, open software, all that stuff, and the stuff going on with Clue building an army to bring perfection to the real world. Yeah, I would
Mm-hmm.
not accuse Microsoft of trying to create perfection with Windows. You know what I'm saying? Maybe Mac, but like not Mac, Apple,
Mm-hmm.
closed ecosystems, all that kind of stuff. But it's like
Mm-hmm.
if there's one thing that Windows is it might be an attempt at perfection that fails. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying?
Right.
The thematic stuff, the literal stuff in the story, and the thematic stuff. There's a thematic tie between the two stories with the younger Dillinger, all that stuff, and him trying to open source hardware, make it free, and the
Mm-hmm.
free flow of information with the ISOs,
Mm-hmm.
the weird, I don't know, noble savages that get generated by a glitch in the matrix or
Mm-hmm.
something. Yeah, there might be some symbolic thing there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The here's here's the thing. I'm looking at this camera now. I'm looking at the camera. I don't know. Are you familiar with Daft Punk, the band?
A little bit.
Yeah. So they just wrapped up. They did all the music for Tron Legacy, and they actually made it quite a bit of time before the film was released. I don't know how much of their music was made before, but it was a lot of it was released before the film was even shot, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what am I talking about here? Oh, but so I remember talking to a friend at work. A lot of times when you bring up Tron, they immediately go right to the soundtrack. Is what
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people talk about. And Daft Punk does like weird '70s samples mixed with a bit of like MS-20, which is a Korg synthesizer, and 303 and a 909 drum sheet. It's French house, I think is what you fall under. They're two French musicians.
Mm-hmm.
I like. I'm not a huge Daft Punk fan, but I like their music outside the film a little bit. They're like Robot Rock. If you've seen Iron Man 2,
Mm-hmm.
that scene where he's fighting, is it Rhodey? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that that's their music. So if you remember that incredibly specific scene in Iron Man 2, where he's kind of drunk and he's fighting Rhodey, and the Robot Rock is that track.
So, do you think this music fit the film
Uh,
better?
It's more streamlined, so the original soundtrack is all over the place. I know the duo worked with the composer, so it feels like there's more. You're not gonna be a classically trained composer like you would have with the original one, but it does feel like it has a more clear musical identity. I don't know if it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I like bits of the original soundtrack more, but the original soundtrack feel like they were just going for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Carlos, the original composer, just was going for everything, good and bad. I think there's lots of parts of the soundtrack where I wish they would have brought maybe different pieces, and maybe they did, maybe
Mm-hmm.
they didn't.
Right.
It's tough. The original soundtrack has almost zero cultural footprint. He does sing it. The same way he's got the Jeff Bridges like sings the melody, but that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the theme, it's much more Hans Zimmery. It's got melody in it, but it's much more like rhythmic and kind of whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I might be a little bit all over the place here, but a lot of people have talked about it. Go like, oh, it's cool that we got a Daft Punk album with a Daft Punk album with a movie attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
So when some people talk about Doom 2016, although Doom 2016 is a much better game than Tron Legacy is a movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's very singular in that sense. I don't think it's. I think the music is. I'd use the term successful,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that if you want a more up to date electronic soundtrack, Daft Punk is like. I don't know if they were the most obvious choice in 2010, but they're definitely like in terms of radio time and stuff. The most current popular electronic duo. I don't know who you would have gone with in the '80s, like what the Pet Shop Boys or Depeche Mode or Kraftwerk or Gary Newman. You know what I'm saying? You wouldn't have gone with a pop group back in the day, but for current stuff, or even Journey or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. That's a lot of just what I'm a bit in the weeds in terms of like synthesizers and electronic music. But yeah, I think technically Pet Shop Boys are still technically. I might be saying that name wrong. The more famous group.
Okay.
I don't know if you know what those are. Yeah, Pet Shop Boys. Yeah, I think they're the most successful duo, but they're like Depeche Mode or Human League or whatever. That era of that. So
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah. So anyways, I would have other groups. I would not none of those groups. But Kraftwerk, they weren't really a thing in 2010 anymore. But like I feel like some of their music would be kind of cool. Or Herbie Hancock, he was a jazz musician. His Rocket, he did a lot of electronic. He's done on and off electronic music. I feel like he would be a cool guy, but it's successful. So to stop me from rambling here for too long, I'll kind of move on.
So I was wondering about
Yeah.
we had mentioned the villain's motive is more tropey in the Tron Legacy. Do you maybe want to explain more about that? That sounds interesting.
What do you think about other Jeff Bridges, aka Clue? What do you think about his character and his plan and all that stuff?
I think it's like simple, somewhat, and maybe more easy to follow. I think
it is essentially the same plan as the Master Control program in the first film, except the Master Control program was going to take over like the Pentagon or something, or was it the Pentagon or the White House? In the Kremlin. So he was taking over the world by taking over the computer systems.
Right.
Where it seems like Clue's plot is to literally take over the world. That's oh gosh,
right.
It's yeah, but yeah, it's the Master Control program is just a regular program that's kind of gotten too big for his britches, a bit like Dillinger in a way. Where it seems like that's weird. I just realized he was actually created. That program was created by the boss of the original boss. So it means there's probably two programs that got like his face. I don't know how that works. You do see him for a split second at the end, in that kind of weird like Sphinx kind of thing where they can spin around, and you don't see that in the sequel. That and the weird plant bird thing. Yeah, what do you think? Did the I know I was probably when we watched, I was probably pointing out the CGI, but did his CGI at all bother you? The weird DH face at all?
It was a little weird.
Okay.
I probably didn't notice as much as you did.
I did notice when I was a kid, but now that I more into 3D and all that stuff, yeah. I probably wouldn't have to even be in the 3D to notice it a little bit, yeah.
Do you think they could have done something different?
I don't know.
With it, or
I don't know. I guess the idea is that he wouldn't have aged at all, which is the idea they were going with. I don't know why he couldn't just age. You know what I'm saying? Why does he have to look like 1989 Jeff Bridges or whatever year they're going for? De-aging's got a lot better. So I guess that was just Tron crawled so that what's a more thing, like I don't know, Robert Downey Jr. in Civil War. That scene where he's like young Robert Downey Jr. It's actually that one actually really works because there's a lot of young Robert Downey Jr. films, you know. I mean, there's also Jeff Bridges at that age too, so it kind of it's not the worst one. I think was it X-Men 3 where they got young Patrick Stewart and he's just like a like a weird digital looking dude. Yeah. What do you think though about the whole plot basically hinges on Clue's motivation is that he is kind of for lack of better terms, like a fascist, basically. And when Flynn finds a group called the ISOs, and he's all like, dude, man, like religion, science, everything, man. They're all that. It's all
Mm-hmm.
that. He basically decides that the way to go is genocide and to conquer the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, I'm not saying any of that's bad, but that's what I
Mm-hmm.
meant when I said like tropey. Like, do you have any thoughts on that or?
Yeah, I think that I feel like there are a lot of films that have a take over the world
Yeah,
somewhat vibe. Even like the Avengers, you have
yeah,
Loki, who kind of wants to take over the world.
it,
There's probably films I can't think of that have that
yeah. I mean,
theme.
at least with Loki, he's got some complex characterizations with his relation to his father and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
His relation to Thor. It if any criticism I'd be is Tron Uprising treats all the programs like they're just people.
Mm-hmm.
Uprising Tron 2.0 is a little bit weird, but in the both movies, there's clearly some programs that are just like robots. Basically, they kind of
Right.
the Master Control program would be a good example of that. It clearly has some emotion,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not that much different from like Skynet in that sense. Yeah, or
Right.
Terminator.
Mm-hmm.
And even that first time you meet Cindy Morgan's AI, she's just kind of like, I guess, talking like an AI, an old school like Microsoft, like voice to text, just kind of dryly putting it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. You mentioned Terminator Skynet. Do you think any parallels could be drawn between Skynet and this Tron legacy?
yeah. I think they'd probably be both inspired by like old stories like I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, where you have a bunch of different computers built to fight the Cold War, and they basically nuke each other to death, basically. And yeah, or that's another Harlan Ellison story. He did try to sue James Cameron because he claimed the idea of a super soldier going back in time, or a soldier going back in time, is a thing that's so from. But it's also a Doctor Who episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's the idea of sending an assassin back in time is interesting.
Right.
Um, there's some parallels. Skynet is much more dispassionate, a little bit more logical, a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
using time travel to say it's a last ditch thing. It kind of does and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Where I don't understand Clue's motivation, why he needs to take over the real world and the users, because he's already kind of won.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, why not take over the internet?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if Tron so the internet really wasn't a thing in like the 80s. They
Mm-hmm.
had the military net and you had like all the like university systems.
Mm-hmm.
But that computer was using those dial-up connections to get all those other systems like Matthew Broderick and what was it different from Matthew Broderick and War Games where he accidentally
Mm-hmm.
hacks a computer that's very similar to the Master Control program.
Mm-hmm.
So that one's trying to take over what would have been the internet in 1982, which would have been basically him, literally dialing up other computers and
Mm-hmm.
talking to their modems and all that stuff. In the case of Clue and Legacy, it's really unclear how much in control is he in. Because you would assume he could probably control any computer that uses their operating system.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in real life, um, like Mac is a Unix derivative or a BSD derivative, which is a Unix derivative. It's licensed, I think Alice BSD.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of him being able to jump right into a Unix system would be tough. Windows is completely homemade in the sense that I think it's made like assembly and C++ and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a different architecture, and then Linux is its own architecture, and then like you have like different Unix systems that are used for different things. Some NAS software and all that stuff is written in Unix, and probably some car stuff is written in this and whatever that this and this and that, whatever repackaged version of like an open source or closed source thing.
Mm-hmm.
So for him to get across the system, a program could not directly go from like a server to like a Windows computer, and then there's different versions of like Mac They aren't always compatible with each other. Different versions of like Android. Android's closer to Linux, but it's not like a pure version of Linux. It is Linux, but it's not a pure version of Linux. And then Apple would be closer to Unix, which is Unix and Linux are derivatives. Linux is a derivative of Unix. But anyways,
And then I thought, is Tron
yeah.
maybe similar to Ultron?
Oh,
Because the Avengers Age of Ultron, you had Ultron who
yeah.
could go escape through the internet somehow
Yeah.
and then go somewhere else.
Yeah. So the difference is in the 80s. So the 80s, for example, master control program would be probably stuck on a particular computer, and he would have to break his way into other systems and learn their codes and language and all that stuff. That's why he's talking about wanting a Chinese language file. There's a book about a guy trying to find a hacker in the 80s. I think called like the Cuckoo's Egg or something. It's interesting. By the time you get to, I haven't seen Ultron since it came out, but back in 2015 when that movie came out, I think it's 2015, right?
I think so, yeah.
Somewhere around that time with it, because 2012, 2011 for Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it'd be around that time. If a program got on the internet, it would be able to get all over the place. All the computers, everything's networked. Even these cameras that we're recording this with can get on the internet. All that stuff. They got the ability to you can plug a thing in and get on Wi-Fi and all that stuff, or plug a modem in and live stream. So you would never be able to get rid of an Ultron. You'd never be able to, like that new Mission Impossible one where they're going against an AI.
Right.
You would never be able to get rid of it if it can back up itself and get into all the computer systems, unless it had an incredibly specific system it had to run on, like a supercomputer, like in a Person of Interest. There is a supercomputer it has to be attached to, so that part of the plot is about where is it located and all that stuff. Where's the government hiding the different AIs and stuff. But yeah, there's definitely stuff like that. As a conversation, like let's say you use some Apple stuff, you use some Windows stuff. There's a whole idea about like the conversation about open operating systems being free, like you know what I'm saying, like do you have a as like as someone that doesn't do a lot of like DIY stuff with computers, is that something that like interests you, or at least could like follow the argument or anything like that, or
Yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting argument.
yeah,
I don't know a lot about it, but I'm sure there's like pros and cons to
yeah,
open system versus non-open system
yeah,
for various reasons. Could be like security reasons,
yeah,
or it could be uh, licensing issues,
yeah,
or it could be others. But I thought the film did good with kind of at least mentioning,
yeah,
bringing up the issue. That made it interesting.
yeah. It's a huge thing, and then obviously you have a lot of stuff. I mean, like you want to buy Windows at the full price. There's other ways to get it cheaper. It's like can be up to like $100 or more. So you build your computer up. there's legal, and I say legal, but cheaper ways to get keys from like bulk sellers and stuff. It's a little bit cheaper. I don't know if that's a gray market kind of thing, but you know what I'm saying, yeah. So you don't have to pay full price if you don't necessarily want to. I'm not sure if that breaks TOS or whatever, but anyways, the idea of like having Windows being closed source, a lot of the issues, like for example, if you on Linux, there's a huge thing about like Nvidia, which they make graphics cards. They're closed source, so they ticked off a bunch of that community. So a lot of it prefer to go with arguably worse, but same spec AMD cards for that reason, because they can build all in the operating system. So when you get a Linux computer, you can just plug an AMD card and it more or less works. I don't, and technically with with Nvidia, but it uses it's complicated. So that means like if I have a video editor, that uses the proprietary driver. I have to swap it over to that.
Mm.
But there's a game I have where if I want to run it with the driver, I have to swap over to the open source one. It's really stupid. But a better example would be is I do audio stuff, so I have like virtual instruments.
Mm.
They all are copyright. So the people that make the instruments could make them for Linux. There's a way to do that, but the licensing is a pain on Linux, and they have no way of knowing what your system is. So a lot of stuff would be nice if everybody embraced open source models, but a lot of companies would be afraid of doing that. It's the funny thing though is like most of their infrastructure is like somewhat. Like you open up your phone, there's a thing where they have to list all the open source projects they use, even on an iPhone and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing's purely closed source or open source in today's world. But
Mm-hmm.
anywho, that's a lot of rambling about open source that I think somewhat pertains to the film, but the film really doesn't have a part where they bring out like Linus Torvald or something like that and explain why he made Linux or something like that, or some of the different advocates and stuff. Let's just move for the outline here a little bit.
So it looks like with Tron Legacy, did we talk about the visuals?
Yeah, I guess if we're staying on story, I do say the stories get to the objective.
Mm-hmm.
It's so what is he trying to do? So Sam Flynn, who's Kevin Flynn's son, gets told by his friend Alan, who's been his surrogate father since the late '80s or something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how old the character's supposed to be, but I imagine probably was a young kid when his dad disappeared. But I guess the thing is that he's trying to find his dad, and then once he gets in the computer, he realizes it's a trap,
Mm-hmm.
and then tries to get to the gateway out, which Flynn put in some inconvenient place to prevent programs from getting to it.
Uh-huh.
But also it's locked with a key, so only he just can get out, which really confused me. So
Because they're in the part where they went to kind of go through a maze almost.
yeah, so Clue can get there, but he can't use it unless he has his disc. So he actually gets Sam Flynn's disc, and it's not usable. So that means he's like locked the portal to get out. But in the original film, they use those portals to communicate with their users.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like obviously because the idea is that time moves faster in Tron than it does in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
So like a cycle, there's this bunch of cycles that happen like a second. Not to go another random aside about that, but it's like Narnia and stuff. Time moves faster in Tron than it does in the real world.
Right.
But the idea is that if there's only select portals around the world, how the heck are you communicating with the outside world? How are you getting instructions from your user?
Mm-hmm.
Weird. Especially on a lot of the computer systems where you'd have to have the program to do something and then communicate back and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a question. It just seems to be located out of the city for whatever. I don't know why it's not located in the city. Why aren't there dozens of them all over the place like there were in the original one?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. That might be too pedantic. It seems like they're trying to recreate the end of the first film, where they go to the master control program and fight him on his own turf, and then Flynn gets out by jumping into the data stream and getting out that way. Yeah,
right.
Slowing him down or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Is that you have a note about Zeus's story feels underbaked?
Oh yeah, Zeus was the random dude, I'm trying to find the right word, flamboyant bar owner. The Code of Casablanca for some reason. He's funny, but the idea is so like in another movie, you would go to him, he would give you some information, and then send you on your way to do something. He basically goes there to that club, and Zeus is like just kind of like messing around and whatever. The weird model that they use to like put the armor on in the arena. They have to have 4 of them do that. Apparently she has a day job. She just doesn't live there. It's never quite sure how much it programs her people. So she takes him to Zeus. and then Zeus is going on about stuff, and then he goes like, "Oh, we got to get you a forged disc
Mm-hmm.
and identification, basically all the stuff you would do in a spy thriller or like in a crime thriller where they're trying to get out of the country."
Mm-hmm.
But he's also called Clue, so the entire point of the sequence is there's a suggestion that he used to fight with the ISILs, but in order for him to keep his bar open, he cut a deal with Clue.
Mm-hmm.
So he's selling them out. He's selling out all the resistance. So you got other resistance guys there who you never hear about
Mm-hmm.
or talk about that are also resisting. I don't know if it's a tie-in to the TV show. They never got that far
Mm-hmm.
where you actually got to see. I think you do see a couple of characters from the show. They're unique to Tron Legacy in there, but not a ton.
Mm-hmm.
What is my point I'm trying to make here? But the it's definitely a like let's have a scene. We'll have a like I think he played Asmodeus in a very famous film back in the. Oh, okay, yeah, completely different guy. So he played Asmodeus on the theater and stuff. So he's a very famous like a British theater actor. I don't know how much of that I'll have to cut out. But anyways, if you seen Casablanca,
I don't think I have seen that
okay.
one. No.
Sometimes I do that in intro to film classes and stuff. It's a good film. I might cover it on the show at some point, maybe with some other Humphrey Bogart stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
the idea is that Humphrey Bogart, um, sort of, he used to be a resistance member, and he runs a bar. And Ingrid Bergman's character shows up and wants him to help her and her husband get out of the country. Casablanca, which is in Morocco, is occupied by the Nazis. They're a little bit separate, but not really. All that stuff, you know.
Okay.
So the whole point of the film is he's kind of jaded and doesn't want to help her, but also there used to be a romantic connection, all that stuff. It's a really
Mm-hmm.
weird film to reference, but they're like, "Oh yeah, we're doing Casablanca," you know, here. Like of all the bars in the world you could walk into,
Mm-hmm.
of all the, that's I'm butchering the line there, but he references that.
Mm-hmm.
And Star Wars also kind of references Casablanca with like the cantina scene and all that stuff.
Okay.
Whatever. It's similar in that sense, but it's a really weird thing to kind of call out and then not do a lot with. Not that Zeus should have been a bigger character, but it's just like it's a dead end. So if like I don't know, it'd been interesting to see him actually working in the resistance networks, kind of like in the Matrix or other stories of that kind,
Mm-hmm.
working for the resistance networks and kind of making them either smuggling him or helping him get to where he needs to go. Um, Minority Report has stuff like that where he goes to like a guy and gets his eyes replaced and all that stuff, which is kind of creepy and weird, so that he can't get tracked by the surveillance state.
Oh.
But there's all that stuff, or he's got to go to basically like a one of those a street doctor basically.
Right.
I don't know. And then what do you think? Man, I have a tendency just to ramble. Sorry about that, man.
It's okay. So for Tron Legacy, the visuals. Did we talk about the visuals?
Maybe last point on this one is what do you feel about Tron himself in Tron Legacy?
I thought he was good. I don't know if he was in the film. I feel like maybe he was in the film less than the.
Well, I'm not talking about Bruce Boxamar, but like the actual like in the program,
Mm.
the guy with the two discs.
I th-
Yeah.
I thought he was good.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's tricky to compare to the first film.
Yeah, I get the feeling they wanted him to still be kind of cool and doing backflips, which he never did in the original one. But so you could have like prequel uh, Jedi laser battle kind of stuff where he's doing backflips and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact in the prequels Yoda in 20 years can't do backflips anymore, but he's like 900 years old, so he was able to do it 20 years ago. Not that I get into the whole thing, but Yeah, when I say glorified cameo, it's like the both films are named Tron,
Mhm.
which he's not the main character in either film,
Right.
but he is much more of a main character in the first film
Hmm.
than he is in the second one. But he's an antagonist of sorts
Hmm.
in the second one. But I don't know. It's not clear what happened to him, but he turns good at the end. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
Right, because
yeah,
can you do a quick summary of the ending?
yeah. So basically, with what happened with Tron is that he nearly got killed or something. They go into a little bit more detail in Tron Uprising, but I'd recommend if you want to make any sense of that. Tron Uprising explains it more, but also makes less sense because it ends on a cliffhanger.
Hmm.
Or not really cliffhanger, but like next season, yeah.
Right.
So, anyways, he nearly gets killed by Clue when Clue decides that it's time to start genocide, uh, killing all the ISOs,
Hmm.
um, and also Flynn's gotta be killed for some reason too,
Hmm.
because he's apparently when you program the program, they take the first thing you told them very literally. So it's a little bit of a be careful what you ask for.
Hmm.
So he's able to interpret his mission in a way that doesn't require users and all that stuff to make a perfect system. For what? I don't know.
Hmm.
So maybe be a little bit more specific when you create a program
Hmm.
in that weird scene. So, anyways, somehow he's brainwashed or evil or something,
Hmm.
and it's not working on the side of the bad guys who
Hmm.
don't really have a name per se, but they're just the bad guys,
Hmm.
the clues people. So it's definitely it's definitely interesting. Like as a story, you definitely get that plot point where he seems pretty cool killing everybody else
Hmm.
except for Flynn. Um, and when he decides not to kill Flynn, he gets taken out, and then at the end he sees colors turn to blue
Hmm.
because whatever colors you're wearing is your alliance or something like that. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's not bad. The stuff they do with Tron in the animated series is interesting because it's not much of a spoiler, but um after he gets after he gets nearly killed by Clue, he basically almost has like a disease because parts of his coat are missing and all that stuff. So
Hmm.
he's got still has scars from where he got hit by the disc and all that stuff. And
Hmm.
so a lot of the series is about his declining health as a program and all that stuff, which is a real thing in the Camping Road programs where they lose information over time.
Hmm.
Bit rot and all that stuff could be, it wouldn't be bit rot, but whatever.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's been us talking about the plot of Tron Legacy, which is, it's, I don't know what your opinion is, but I would classify it as like, if Tron, the original film, is fine, uh, Tron Legacy is like I don't know, like it's like it's like if they make a 27th Transformer film, I feel like if it's better than that, you know what I'm saying? It's better than like Hobbs and Shaw. It's a different kind of fine. It's like the original film felt more of if you take just the real world stuff, it's pretty thin, but it's a more conventional story in a sense.
Hmm.
Where Tron Legacy is more like go to the place, get the thing. I don't know. We gotta go. We gotta. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Hmm. How do for Tron Legacy, like if it was a 1 to 10
Yeah.
rating, how do you think you'd rate it?
You would have to almost do it on categories. So, I think the story would get. There's something there with him not seeing his dad in 20 years or something.
Hmm.
There's something there with Tron going evil that could be interesting. I think Clue's kind of whatever. There's something there with the ISOs. I think it's wacky. The idea they have like genetic code. How does that work?
Hmm.
No, here's the thing. The idea of a weird out of nowhere programs that have genetic code being able to be in the real world, I have less of an issue with because it could maybe that would turn into actual genes when it comes out of the laser, like a person,
Hmm.
versus just a regular program that's probably a few megabytes to a few like the biggest programs like video games are like 100 gigabytes. That's a whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, which is I can't remember how much a giga is. But anyways, the sto- the story is fine. I think
Mm-hmm.
the visuals there is much weirder and interesting stuff in the original Tron, but it does kind of streamline everything.
Mm-hmm.
The acting, I would even kind of say streamline. Like, is it the greatest Jeff Bridges performance of all time? No. There are films that Jeff Bridges won Oscars for and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
he's there's much better films. I've seen worse some really obscure film that no one's gonna get the reference on, but called the Seventh Son. But everyone else is fine. The younger actor that's playing his son is kind of doing like a Jeff Bridges impression almost. He's kind of like, yeah, whatever. And then Olivia Wilde as the program is trying to do a little bit of like a fish out of water thing. A lot of these characters are like really, they're trying to almost kind of make up for in terms of personality, in terms of lack of like I don't know, whatever. Oh yeah, so I'd say it's like a 4 or 5 in terms of script. In terms of visuals, when I saw it the first time, I would probably say like an 8.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably say a 7 these days. I don't. It's starting to show its age a little bit in terms of
Mm-hmm.
like the compositing, the stuff that's set still look really good. Um, it just a lot of it's the compositing, all that stuff. A lot of shots don't. Some of the shots in the um, uh, Coliseum look very clearly composited. It
Mm-hmm.
also jumps around aspect ratios between like IMAX to like more traditional scope back up to IMAX. It goes up. I don't, or maybe it's 1.85 or something, but it's changing aspect ratios a lot. A lot of movies at the time did that, but it feels really random. I'm not sure. The Dark Knight had a few scenes that were IMAX.
Mm-hmm.
Harry Potter films, I think, had a few scenes that were IMAX. He didn't do the whole film jumping around random aspect ratios and stuff. You have it be a letterbox the whole time, or have it be full screen the whole time. That's a thing. That's a thing. Anyways, like it wasn't like Christopher Nolan where he just convinced them to let him run the cameras the entire time because he's just got that kind of pull for some reason. Anyways,
And then for Tron Legacy, what about the music?
yeah, I think we did that. Do you have an opinion on the Daft Punk soundtrack for Tron Legacy?
I think it. I think it fit the film.
Yeah,
It was a little bit of a change from the original,
yeah,
or from the Tron 2.0, so
yeah.
that made it kind of interesting.
It's much more pop.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more club in that sense. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Um, yeah. Some. I shouldn't get into that. It's too technical. Did you have any thoughts on the visuals?
I liked them better than the first film.
Okay.
I think they were. Yeah, I think it was just made it better.
Yeah. It does help. It does help. What 28 years of
Mm-hmm.
development? Yeah. I'd be really interested to see what a '90s Tron would look like
Mm-hmm.
around the time of like Jurassic Park or something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When CGI was actually getting pretty good by that point and more standard.
So yeah, I think given the advances in technology,
Mm.
it was pretty solid.
Yeah, because you basically go from like yeah, it's a very streamlined film. A lot of the stuff looks like physical objects, but in the context of Tron, like glass, metal, stainless steel, rock, but it's kind of like digitized. It's a little bit more whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So in the original Tron, it's more overtly digital, more
Mm-hmm.
overtly inside a computer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I have a preference. A Tron where everything was completely digital or completely better integrated, um, where everything had the same consistent look to it. I'd almost or let's say like they even had the technology that late '80s films would have had or something, where you could have had not had, the camera could move a little bit smoother and all that stuff. Would be interesting. It's very primitive, but they designed the sets and all that stuff to match it. Where the new one is, I do feel like you can see a little bit, not as much of a jump as the old film, but you can kind of see like, oh, that's a set. That looks composited, but it is a little bit more from a production. It's almost like really good production design, like very Apple in that sense. Where you go to like an
Mm-hmm.
Apple, it's a little bit like a little bit more edgy, but like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what would be since we're like all over the place here? What would be your overall thoughts on?
Tron Legacy.
Yeah,
I think it's an interesting and engaging film
yeah,
that I think it's worth watching.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, it's just kind of interesting to see the change from the first film.
yeah.
As there's some new elements that have been added
Mhm.
that make it still engaging.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If how would you rate it out of 10?
I would just say it's like a 6 or 7,
Okay.
considering the visuals, the music, the story, the acting.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And would you recommend to a friend?
Yeah, I think I would recommend it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like between the two of them, it's the easier recommend. Another fun fact is it's directed by the same guy that made Oblivion, Top Gun Maverick, and F1.
Oh,
He did
interesting.
some other films but I just can't remember off the top of my head.
Uh
So
huh. Oh, interesting.
yeah. So I felt Top Gun Maverick. I don't think the visuals. I'm talking the plane visuals are better, but the cinematography I don't think is as interesting as the original Top Gun. But I feel like the script is like a gazillion times better.
Mm.
So I almost wish, if I don't know who wrote Tron Legacy, but I almost wish I don't know they could have had as much of a thematic, character-driven thematic through line that about I don't know. It's a thing, but
Mm-hmm.
and then F1 is also I feel like a little bit. It's still very tropey. I feel like Top Gun Maverick is a little bit better script, but yeah, he's an interesting director. It'll be interesting to see where he goes from this point.
Mm-hmm.
The original director had a lot of involvement in the sequel too, and I'm not sure what he did per se, but
Mm-hmm.
I think he was an executive producer or something like that, or a producer of sorts. So had some creative input on it, which is good. He hasn't done a lot since Tron, so I'm glad to hear that he was still able to figure that out, and hopefully he's working on the next one,
Mm-hmm.
which comes out in a month, which
Yeah.
is
What do you think about the neutron? Is? Do you think it like makes sense considering the first two? Do you think it makes sense to kind of have a newer
well.
one?
I think it'd be pretty easy to figure out what my opinion is after this rambling, but what did you think of the trailer?
I thought the trailer looked interesting. The idea of bringing people into the
Yeah,
real world. So almost, I think the word we used was inverse or not reverse of
yeah, it would be inverse.
yeah inverse of the other
The
films.
vice versa of Tron. Yeah, yeah,
So I think that's an interesting. I think it's going to be interesting to see.
yeah,
Also considering the time gap too.
yeah.
The to compare how this to see what the new story will be, what the visuals will be like, what kind of music they're going to be including.
Yeah, because it's what 28 years between them, and now it's been 15 years since the last one.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it'll be much more of an incremental. Yeah, the new music is Nine Inch Nails. I don't know if you're familiar with them. Industrial rock group.
Okay.
Um, yeah. Would you so like with the stuff like the in the trailer, like the airplane getting cut in half by the beams, all that stuff, and the idea is it's war and all that stuff.
Yeah, it seems like the new Tron is more of a yeah has a war
Yeah,
theme, which is a little different direction from the
yeah.
other Tron films.
I would be really interested. It's kind of got that same issue some of the Star Wars films have, where they almost focus exclusively on like the Skywalker family. I almost be kind of be more interested in other, or even Tron himself, but other non-human resistance in this. If it seems like it focuses on Jared Aleto's character, who is a special program to do special things for special reasons. I'm not exactly sure what his whole shtick is, but he must be like made to be brought on a robot. Because the whole thing that the guy's talking about, oh, AI, this or this and that, machine learning, but really the program's going to come out of the computer rather than us go in the computer. And it's like, yeah, they got the giant laser thing to kind of, so you can have cool looking trucks and stuff. You could probably just have as many Cybertrucks come out with probably less problems. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think you were mentioning earlier about kind of explaining just some of the challenges with having a inverse or reverse with this new film.
Yeah.
Of some of the maybe challenges
So like
from the original films.
Yeah. So for example, have you ever seen the film The Sixth Day? With Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I actually don't think I've seen that one.
So in that film, the villains, which are running illegal genetic cloning, if they die, they can just print a new version of themselves, and it's like their memories right up to the last time they got scanned.
Mm-hmm.
You could theoretically do something like that in the Tron universe, where if you die, you could have a backup of yourself. If you could have a program come out of a computer, you could theoretically scan. Or actually, even the original Tron. You don't need to have because you're digital in that part. You could theoretically transport yourself to Hawaii. That's the thing they mention in the film. But you could theoretically, if you had enough storage, create backups of yourself incrementally. And so if you died, you could just print a new. Obviously, it wouldn't be you per se, but it would be a clone of yourself with all your memories and all that stuff, up until the point you last got scanned.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm wondering if that's how Jeff Bridges is in the movie. Because I don't know. I don't even know the whole plot of the Tron Legacy is if you create a program inside the computer, you die if you try to delete it. But if you got out, would you have been fine? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's weird. It's I guess you can't like, never mind. But anyway, so you got all that stuff, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering with the new one, even with. Because the trailer mentioned something about AI.
Yeah.
So how could AI leave the realm of the computer part? Because if it's artificial intelligence, it's artificial.
Yeah.
So how could that? Just kind of speculating, how could that transfer into the real world?
I want to go to these TED Talks where Jeff Bridges was yelling at the top of his lungs about the future and him explaining. So you see in here, there's like tiny cars. And they go, woo, you know what I'm saying? And then I went there, you know what I'm saying? Like he kept talking about our futures on the inside of the computer, but he never made the technology open to the public. Mm-hmm. So I get the feeling that the technology of Tron, they're not going to open it to the public, but they're going to use it to like make stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So having the Tron open to the general public is bizarre in a lot of like actual implications. Mm-hmm. So they keep in both films that never really becomes a big thing. As there's all sorts of things you think about. Like for example, if you're dying of a disease, and then you get sent to the grid, what happens with that? Mm-hmm. If you have like could you still scan properly, all that stuff, or could you duplicate yourself a few times, send yourself back out, all that stuff? Could you have a version of yourself running in the grid and in real life at the same time that would both technically be you? Mm-hmm. How's that different from a program? Also, too, with artificial intelligence, like machine learning, large language models, is very different from regular programs, especially in the 80s and stuff, which are there's forms of algorithms and artificial intelligence that existed before machine learning, but they're almost like decision trees where you have branching paths, like almost like a telemarketer script of like all that stuff. So if Tron met ChatGPT is in a completely different league with how much information it has access to. Mm-hmm. You can pull out your phone and just talk to it. You know, you can have your camera going and going like, "What's this?" You know, I'll say like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't do that with a program made for a mainframe in the 80s, or even a program made for more recent architecture, like 2010s, which would have been right before AI was in the conversation. I think I've seen some things about Obama talking about AI. Like it's been around for a bit, but
Hmm.
not as much as not. And arguably there was some television shows talking about AI, but it was way too cutting edge. But yeah,
So they're probably so yeah with the new Tron film they're trying to update in some ways maybe update take the old Tron maybe tropes or
yeah,
ideas and basically update them for the modern viewer who knows about AI and that kind of a thing, or
yeah.
more modern technology is kind of what it seems to be, kind
The
of their goal of the film, maybe.
the issue of Tron as a metaphor for the inside of a computer is it was I felt like it made sense in terms of 80s design language, neon lasers, all that stuff. It also made sense with the capability of the hardware. Hard drives when the hard drives were I don't know if they were even something you could buy, but like they for a lot of those machines would have been recording to tape at that time. You see a lot of reel to reel stuff in the background,
Hmm.
so like everything was very different. You could buy computer programs on tape or cartridges or floppy disks and stuff. So technology was very different at that point in time. And even it was a huge leap even in the 90s and stuff with cheap hard drives and all that stuff. And then obviously flash today with SSDs, which you can get like a 4 terabyte SSD for relatively cheap.
Hmm.
The issue is was Tron. The computing power of that entire facility would be dwarfed by even a single server now. So the idea of that grid would keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So you would have one or two things happen. Is that either the grid would be so huge even for a single company, they would dwarf the size of that mainframe in the original series, or you could buy that with the internet, and it's just a whole like dimension to itself, or even multiple dimensions, or because you have all these different architectures and all that stuff. So the idea, like that character Bit, which was a single bit,
Hmm.
the idea of him being around the same size as Tron is interesting. But then you think about how many bits or bytes or whatever it be, 8 bits in a byte, there were so like downstream. You're talking millions and millions of bits even to make rudimentary stuff. Like okay, you got basically uh, if you how many bits in a megabyte? So 8 million bits in a megabyte. So that just tells you how much bigger that is, and then
Hmm.
if you go to gigabyte, that's like a billion. Gigabyte is 1 billion bytes of data. So you bytes, not a gigabyte is a gigabit versus a gigabyte. So you're talking about one of those bits. A gigabyte is a billion of those, and then you go from gigabyte up to terabyte, then terabyte up to whatever, and then you get up to petaflops and all that stuff.
Hmm.
Petabyte and then petaflops and all that stuff.
Hmm.
So the amount of computing power that exists, like collectively between all the machines, the amount of storage, Tron would be really different looking if you tried to take that same if you had that same creative spark of what does an inside of a computer look like.
Hmm.
Have you ever heard of the show Reboot?
I don't know if I've heard of
Uh,
that.
it's a show that came out in the '90s, but it was computer animated. Let's see if I can. It's fun. They did a reboot of Reboot, which was it kind of looks like this, but like you know,
Okay.
yeah. It's really that must be the character Gigabyte. It's really simple, but you can tell even that's what they were able to do on television in the night. It's a Canadian
Hmm.
animation company.
Hmm.
We probably I like the show, but it's very hard to watch because it's very early days of digital animation on CGI on television. Not
Hmm.
obviously it's digital animation could be other things technically, But that is them trying to make a metaphor for the insides of a computer
Mm-hmm.
in 1990 something, before Toy Story even.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense. If you go from Tron to Reboot, they're looking more. Everything's completely computer generated. They have like diners and spaceships and all that stuff. So the metaphor becomes a little bit more in the computer. In the 90s. You start to have things like the desktop. The desktop environment is supposed to be like a literal desktop. You have your home. They had a lot of UI that was designed around abstracting computer processes with stuff you would have in real life, like copy and paste, with like all that kind of stuff. So you start to bring in real world terminology and design into computers. But by the time you get to the 2010s, the inside of a computer is really high res, by that point. So Tron is actually a little bit retro futuristic in the sense that is what the future would have looked like from the 80s more so than it would be from today.
Mm-hmm.
Where the inside of a computer now would probably be closer to like the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
It just would hard to be. It would get like high end VR, that stuff like that. Um, Source code, yeah. Did you see source code? The one with the guy on the train.
I think so.
Yeah. So it really high end, cutting edge technology. It'd be very hard to. You get to a certain point where it would stop looking like bits and pixels and um, polygons, which is what the term for use for a shape. Like you can see the individual polygons in Tron, where now they have you can count like the amount of polygons. If you scan this, it would be a lot,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of stuff. Whatever. Um, so yeah, I guess it's really tough because the weird pedantic nerdy side of explaining how a computer works and all that stuff and how the original Tron is much closer to what computing was then versus now, but
Mm-hmm.
I would say all that said, it does the fact that it does can carry over the design language, some plot points, all stuff or whatever in that. As a story, Tron Uprising is significantly better.
Mm-hmm.
I'd actually recommend, even though it's technically like a children's cartoon, it's much more serious. It takes into account like how the resistance will work, a little bit more of the specifics of like the ISOs and all that stuff, how the machines work in their world, the hierarchy of people in the government, but from Clue and his different generals underneath him. It's a much more interesting thing. It has its issues. The biggest one being it doesn't finish, which is just the idea that the story is just hanging on a thread at the end of the thing is just irritating.
Mm-hmm.
But you could still kind of extrapolate on from that point. Tron 2.0 is a curiosity. If you're big into System Shock, I would put that. But yeah, if you were to, for the two, the fact that we've probably gone for about an hour at this point at least. If you had to, I'll probably edit this down pretty heavily. I don't know, like Tron Uprising. What do you got? Any closing thoughts or anything like that? Or I mean,
Yeah, I think in general the films were really interesting.
mm-hmm.
I hadn't really seen any films that were quite um, as that had the theme exactly.
Yeah,
Just the general theme with the technology Tron used and the plot.
yeah,
The closest one I could think of would have been the Terminator with Skynet,
yeah,
but
yeah,
that wasn't even exactly parallel.
yeah.
Or even like the Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Mm-hmm.
That was still loosely, that wouldn't really even be that similar, though maybe loosely.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I thought made the Tron films really unique.
Yeah,
And I would probably recommend them.
yeah,
And it'll be interesting to see how the new film, what they do with the
yeah,
new film, kind of how they, if they try to, if they allude to the old film, or if they kind of take it in a new direction. Kind of be interesting to see where they go with it.
yeah. Are you I guess like are you like how would you describe your interest in the film? Like consciously, cautiously optimistic? Are you hyped? Like what you know what I'm saying?
I think after seeing the first two Tron films.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in the new Tron film.
Yeah.
And yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see, like, even all the more the technical stuff we talked about. It'll be interesting to see how they
Yeah.
portray that in the new film.
Yeah. It'd be interesting. Maybe I'll try to get a video on Tron Uprising between here and that, and maybe do a video for that one too, because so I guess I always forget how much of a fan of that series I am. And 2.0 is a little bit tough because it's a video game, and
Mm-hmm.
that takes a while, especially if you play the original System Shock and all that. Yeah, I don't. I'm just trying to think. This is always a weird part. I usually skip these part of videos when people like closing thoughts or whatever.
Yeah, what are your kind of maybe? Do you want to maybe do a summary of the what
Yeah,
you think of Tron?
I think Tron's flawed, but very interesting. And there's a lot of places they could have taken it. I think Tron Legacy is a very valid direction to take it. It's the most accessible of all of these. And I would Tron 2.0 is a curiosity, and I would basically say Tron Uprising. You need the context of the first film and the second film, but I think it's probably the best piece of media produced by these series of films. But yeah, um, I think that's probably most of the major things. We didn't really do a beat by beat thing of the plot, but yeah, I'd
Mm-hmm.
like to thank you, Simon, for coming on
Yeah,
the
thanks,
show.
Sean.
Yeah, all that stuff. We may or may not cover that, or however, for the later film. Who knows what life will be like in a month? But anyways, hey, thanks for tuning in. This has been Robots, Detectives, and Spies, where we're covering Tron, and you guys have a good rest of your day.